America loves to sell the dream. The biggest economy in the world, strongest military on the planet, the land of the free. But if you pull back the curtain on some of these cities, that dream is a complete lie. Things have gotten so bad in 2026 that President Trump literally had to deploy the National Guard to patrol American neighborhoods. Think about that for a second. We have soldiers walking down US streets just to keep the city from burning down. I'm talking about war zones where 911 just rings out, neighborhoods where gunshots are the soundtrack of the night, and you don't dare stop at a red light because you know you are a sitting duck. If you think I'm just trying to scare you, look at the numbers. These homicide rates are higher than active conflict zones overseas. This is the raw reality the news tries to ignore. So today, we are exposing the 10 most dangerous cities in America based on the latest FBI crime data. And listen, these cities are dangerous, but compared to the monster sitting at number 1, they look like Disneyland. We are talking about the undisputed murder capital of America, a place that is burying hundreds of people every single year. You are going to want to see exactly which city this is, just so you can make sure you avoid it at all costs. Kicking us off at number 10, we have a city that might honestly surprise you. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Usually when you think Wisconsin, you think cheeseheads, the Packers, maybe a cold beer. You don't think danger. But here is the reality check. Milwaukee recorded 21 homicides per 100,000 people in 2025. And while violent crime dropped in most of the country, Milwaukee's homicide rate actually jumped by nearly 25%. That is 142 people killed in a single year. In a city known for breweries, and it's not just the shootings. If you live here, you know about the reckless driving epidemic. The phenomenon of the Kia boys, kids stealing cars and joyriding them through neighborhoods, started right here. It turned the streets into a literal demolition derby. So why is this happening? It comes down to deep, historic segregation. The black poverty rate here is nearly 5 times higher than white residents. When you concentrate that level of economic struggle into specific blocks, violence becomes almost predictable. Over half of these murders aren't random, they're domestic or conflict related. Arguments get heated, a gun comes out, and suddenly a life is gone. Milwaukee is fighting back with prevention programs, but looking at these numbers, they have a long war ahead of them. Crossing state lines for number 9, we land in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, to give credit where it's due, Kansas City has actually made progress. Homicides dropped to a 7-year low in 2025. That is a win. But here is the scary part. Even with those improvements, KC is still one of the most dangerous spots on the map.
The 5-year average of the number of homicides, that is down 12%. The 4-year average of non-fatal shootings, down 22%. The reports of shots fired calls on New Year's Eve, that would be celebratory gunfire, is down 40% from New Year's Eve 2 years ago to New Year's Eve last year.
That just tells you how bad things were before. This city sits at 25 homicides per 100,000 residents. The problem here is that crime doesn't care about state borders. You've got gang activity and trafficking flowing freely between Missouri and Kansas. The police are actually solving cases. Their clearance rate is 75%, which is way above the national average, but they can't stop the calls from coming in. One of the biggest issues facing KC right now is youth violence. We are seeing younger and younger kids getting access to firearms. It's a tragedy that is plaguing the community. Domestic violence is also huge here. People killing people they know.
That person should face some consequence. That person should have some separation from the people that they are abusing and terrorizing. And the way that you do that is through detention for some period.
Kansas City is trending in the right direction, sure. But don't let the improvement fool you. It is still a very dangerous place to be caught slipping. At number 8, we head to the Rust Belt. Cleveland, Ohio. This is your classic tragedy of economic collapse. Factories closed, jobs vanished, and crime moved into the vacuum. Cleveland's population has been shrinking for decades because, frankly, anyone with the means to get out, gets out. The contrast here is startling. Drive 10 minutes into the suburbs, safe. Virtually no violent crime. But inside the city limits, shootings and robberies are just a Tuesday. Recently, Cleveland has seen a terrifying spike in carjackings. We are talking about people being pulled out of their vehicles at gunpoint in broad daylight. It creates a sense of paranoia where you don't even feel safe sitting at a red light. Now, 2025 did see a drop in homicides and thefts, and they saw a massive spike in police recruits. So, there is hope. But even with better numbers, Cleveland ranks in the top tier of American danger. You cannot fix 40 years of economic abandonment overnight. The city is trying to rewrite its story, but for now, the stats are still screaming caution. Listen, we just covered 3 brutal cities, but I have to give you a heads up. The stats we've seen so far, they look like child's play compared to what is coming up later. You are definitely going to want to stick around to see who takes the #1 spot. We are talking about a place where hundreds of people are killed every single year. A place so dangerous that they literally had to bring in the military just to keep the peace on the streets. Make sure you find out which city it is, because if you aren't careful, you might book a vacation straight into a war zone. Now, moving on to #7, this is a weird one. Let's talk about Little Rock, Arkansas. A lot of people overlook Little Rock because it's a smaller city, but statistically, it punches way above its weight class when it comes to violence. On paper, crime looks like it's down. Violent crime dropped 12% over 5 years. Sounds great, right? But here is what the headlines usually miss. In mid-2025, while the rest of the country was cooling down, Little Rock saw a terrifying 39% spike in homicides. The culprit? It's almost always drugs. Arkansas has some of the highest usage rates in the nation, and Little Rock is ground zero. We are talking opioids, meth, fentanyl. When addiction takes over a city, desperation follows. Dealers fight for territory, addicts commit crimes for the next fix, and the cycle spins out of control. Officially, the homicide rate is about 12 per 100,000, but with that recent spike, the streets feel much more volatile. The drug epidemic is an anchor around this city's neck, dragging it back onto this list every single year. #6 is Birmingham, and honestly, this is a bit of a good news, bad news situation. The good news? Birmingham saw a massive 42% drop in homicides in 2025. That is incredible. They finally got the number under 100 for the first time in a decade. Police crackdowns and gang sweeps are actually working. But here is the bad news. The foundation is still cracked. Birmingham was built on steel, and when the steel died, poverty settled in. They call it the Magic City, but the magic has been gone for a long time in some of these neighborhoods. The poverty rate is sitting at 25%. That is 1 in every 4 people fighting just to survive. You can arrest all the gang leaders you want, but if people can't feed their families legally, crime is always going to be an option.
The man charged in the 5 Point South mass shooting and 2 other deadly shootings in Birmingham now faces even more charges, including the mass shooting in July and another homicide in August. According to Birmingham police, 22-year-old Damian McDaniel of Bessemer is responsible for over 30% of the city's homicides from July to September.
Birmingham is clawing its way back, but until that poverty number drops, it's going to stay on this list. Cracking the top 5, we have the poster child for urban grit, Detroit, Michigan. We all know the Detroit story, Motor City, manufacturing dominance, and then the fall. But here is what's wild. Detroit just had its lowest homicide count in decades, down 19% from last year. So why is it still number 5? Because even Detroit at its best is still statistically more dangerous than 95% of the country. It is really a tale of 2 cities. Downtown Detroit has billionaire investment, stadiums, and nice restaurants, but drive 10 minutes out and it is a different world. The issue here is space. As of 2025, there are still 81,000 vacant properties. We are talking entire neighborhoods that are basically ghost towns. Abandoned houses, dark streets, no witnesses, crime thrives in the shadows, and Detroit has a lot of shadows. Bodies get dumped in vacant lots, deals go down in boarded up homes. The city is tearing down the blight and trying to rebuild, but Detroit has a long road to recovery. At number 4, we have a city with a reputation that precedes it, Baltimore. If you've seen The Wire, you think you know Baltimore, and for a long time, that show was basically a documentary. But 2025 was historic. They recorded only 133 homicides, the lowest in 50 years. That is a 31% drop. But here is the hard truth. 133 people still lost their lives. Baltimore's legacy of violence runs deep. You have drug corners on every block in West Baltimore. And now, fentanyl is making everything deadlier. Just recently, 19 people were indicted for a massive trafficking ring directly tied to the violence. And let's talk about the vacants. Baltimore has thousands of empty row homes that are falling apart. These vacants are magnets for crime, acting as stash houses and traps. The other problem? Trust. People here do not trust the police. Corruption scandals have plagued the department for years. And when the community doesn't trust the cops, they don't report crimes. And when crimes don't get reported, criminals operate with impunity. Taking the bronze medal for danger. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis is a regular on this list. It's almost always in the top 3. Homicides are down slightly, hitting a 12-year low, but the rate is still a staggering 38 per 100,000. The defining feature of St. Louis is something locals call the Delmar Divide. It is a street that literally splits the city in 2. On one side, you have mansions and universities. On the other, you have poverty and decay. It is one of the starkest examples of inequality in America. If you look at a map of the murders, they aren't spread out. They are clustered in these devastated neighborhoods with failing schools and zero investment. It's retaliation culture. One crew hits, the other hits back, and the cycle never ends. The police have an 84% clearance rate. They are catching the killers, but they can't arrest their way out of poverty.
The national average a couple of years ago was 50% in the United States of clearing homicide cases. We're at 84%.
Until St. Louis fixes the economic rot in these specific zip codes, the body count is going to stay high. We are down to the final two, and the runner-up for the most dangerous city in America is Memphis, Tennessee. Let this sink in. Memphis has a violent crime rate of 2,501 per 100,000 people. That is the highest violent crime rate of any major U.S. city. If you live here, you are statistically more likely to be a victim than almost anywhere else.
What you just saw. A man shot multiple times.
One of the scariest things about Memphis right now is the interstate shootings. People are literally getting shot at while driving on the highway. It's gotten so bad they had to install special cameras just to track it. Street gangs control huge territories here. The economy tanked years ago, and crime filled the vacuum. Now, they launched Operation Code Zero and arrested 400 gang members in a single year.
Memphis police conducted another round of Operation Code Zero and say they arrested more than 120 suspects, including 72 felons.
Shootings dropped by 38%. But why is it still number 2? Because a 38% drop still left them with 643 shootings in 1 year. The numbers are just astronomical. Memphis is trying to pull itself out of a very deep hole. But right now, it is a war zone.
21 cars. Can you believe that?
What? 21 cars? What? They could have gave me a car. 21 cars? What they gonna do? How they gonna drive 21 cars?
At once.
Right.
And finally, the city you want to be extra careful in. The #1 most dangerous city in America is New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans isn't just the party capital, it's the murder capital. It tops the list with 46 homicides per 100,000 people. And just like the others, crime is technically dropping here. But dropping doesn't mean safe. New Orleans has never fully recovered from Hurricane Katrina. That was 20 years ago, and the city is still dealing with broken infrastructure, failing schools, and deep poverty. The disparity is wild. You have tourists drinking hurricanes on Bourbon Street, and 3 blocks away, people are living in third world conditions. But the biggest issue right now, the police force is critically understaffed. There have been times when 911 calls go unanswered or response times take hours because there just aren't enough officers. It got so bad that in 2026, they literally have National Guard troops patrolling the streets to keep the peace. When you need the military to police your city, you know you have a problem. It's a perfect storm of poverty, gang culture, and a justice system that is barely hanging on. New Orleans takes the crown, but it's a title nobody wants. So there you have it, the 10 most dangerous cities in the US. Look, every city on this list has good people trying to make it work. But statistically, these places are struggling hard. The scariest part is that for a lot of these cities, the violence isn't random, it's generational. It's poverty, it's drugs, and it's a lack of opportunity that traps people in the cycle. But I want to hear from you. Do you live in one of these cities? Is the media blowing it out of proportion? Or is it actually worse than the stats say? Let me know in the comments. By the way, since you are still here, and since you made it all the way to the end, I actually covered the 10 worst states to live in the US in a previous video. If you like this breakdown, you are going to love that one. So check it out right here.